Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love, here with Sports Review Topics, episode number 30. It was good. Sports week. I hope everyone's being safe. Happy holiday. All rolling from the holidays. But nonetheless, it was a good week of sports. We had the national championship NCAA last night between Bama and Ohio State. Give my thoughts on that. We also had 6 games for Super Wildcard Weekend. It was a fun weekend. Go over all that and some more. Also give my prediction on UFC Fight Night. Max Holloway vs Kattar. Go over all that and a little more. So thank you all for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, like and subscribe. Click on that bell for all your news on sports, pro wrestling, my reviews and predictions. Go over all that. So thank you all, and now let's get into the episode, shall we? So last night was the national title game between Bama and Ohio State. Bama 12-0, or the number one, presumed the best team in the country this season. Ohio State number 3. Now Bama, we know, knocked out Notre Dame like we presumed. And of course, Justin Fields, Trey Sermon, and Ohio State led that unexpected blowout of Clemson, which knocked out the the Clemson Tigers, and ended Trevor Lawrence's college football career. But going in this game, you're curious how all the matchups are going to presume. Justin Fields, Trey Sermon, they've been on a roll, especially Trey, starting from the Big Ten championship game against Northwestern, which he really won the game for Ohio State that day. Excuse me one sec. There we go. Okay. Sorry for that little. I had to mute my TV, but still, back to Ohio State and Bama. So, obviously, Trey Sermon and Justin Fields coming out on a hot streak, riding that momentum from over Clemson in the Sugar Bowl. Excuse me. But Bama, of course, we know about them over a decade. Nick Saban, and no matter who their quarterbacks have been, whether it's been McCarron or Tua or Jalen Hurts, they find a way, and we know the talent is there. This year, Najee Harris, he came back. Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, he returned and had some good plays to help out Mac Jones, who had a really good year, a finalist in the Heisman. You got Patrick Surtain, Dylan Moses on defense, Christian Barmore, some real studs in the backfield. But, it was a close game, 14-14. And then it became 21-17. You just had that feel that the team that didn't score a touchdown, then it would go in the other team's favor. And when Ohio State was forced to settle for 3 instead of tying it 21-21, it just began the onslaught of Bama that felt like inevitable. Although for some people, Ohio State seemed like they had a good chance to win this, but it was not to be. And Nick Saban is, as we've already known, the best college coach, I would say, of all time. Gets his 7th national title. And what more could you say? Playing of these players going out on high note. Mac Jones, Harris, Smith, who had a dislocated finger, came out for the trophies celebration. But Smith, Waddle, Harris, like I said, Surtain, Moses, I mean, it's just a who's who is coming out of Bama for this year in the draft. And next week, I'll have my first mock draft open next episode. But, I mean, hats off to Bama. Ohio State had a good effort as well. They had a solid year despite all the things that happened to them. With COVID, Big Ten being shut down a little bit, all the kind of hoops they had to jump. First it was you had to play 6 games, and then there was a fallout against Michigan, so they could only play 5. There was adversity versus Northwestern, so they battled back. Ohio State battled, and Justin Fields, I believe, there will be a lot of executives and scouts that probably have him as the second quarterback taken behind Trevor Lawrence. And, there was that skid. You thought maybe Zach Wilson should be the second quarterback taken. We'll see 3 months down the line, but just Fields, he has his highs and lows, and not every quarterback prospect is perfect. Even Trevor Lawrence, his arm is not great. It's good, but it's not great. There's little intangibles that when he gets drafted, there'll be a coach, hopefully the right coach, right GM takes him and he's able to fix those mechanics and becomes a good NFL quarterback. But we'll see. He had a good season, as well as some Chris Olave, Sean Wayne had some good season as well. So hats off to the Buckeyes. So there's that. Now get into the big news of wildcard weekend. 6 games. Very interesting way to start the playoffs. And, playoffs football, one of the facts about it is, it hits you win or go home. And it was an interesting way to start the playoffs. And so, first was a good way to start. Colts and Bills. The Colts, Week 17, they had to win and get help after that collapse versus Pittsburgh. But Colts, as we know, got in, and Bills right behind Josh Allen. He's had a terrific season. This was a fun game to kick off Wildcard Weekend. The Colts, they took it to the Bills early. They were ahead 10-7, and were driving 4th and goal, and they were aggressive, and instead of going up 13-7, they went for it, did not get it, and by the end of the half, it was the Bills that had the momentum and scored the touchdown to go up ahead 14-10. Now, the Bills, they scored to go up ahead 24-10, but the Colts just kept fighting, kept staying pace. Next thing you know, it's 24 points 27-24 Bills. Colts are driving late. There was that weird... Okay, there's something weird on my screen, so I'm just going to exit that out. Okay, that's good. But... or there was a pop-up, I think, but whatever. So the Colts, they're driving down, and then a completion of Zach Pascal, which was a first down. It was weird. Depending how you look at it, the camera angle, it was close. He looked like he was getting up, and then a fumble, but they called him down after review, so strange review. And then the Colts, they had 2 plays to try to get in field goal range. However, the Colts, Philip Rivers, he threw it out of bounds twice. Confusing. I guess nobody was open. It was hard to see the play develop, and then it came down to a Hail Mary attempt and came up just short. I mean, Bills advance, good for Bills Mafia. First win since 96, but the late 90s. First time Bills Mafia was actually able to be there. 6,700 fans. And they'll be there again against Baltimore next week or this Saturday. But hats off to the Bills. Hats off to the Colts, too. I mean, they had a good season. 11-5. Blankenship, he missed a field goal, which ultimately would tied it at the end. But look, Philip Rivers, I know there'll be hate on the lack of the final drive able to get in field goal range, but nonetheless, he had one of his best years, arguably his best year in the NFL, behind that wall. And I think he still has 1 or maybe 2 years left in him if he wants to. Good win by the Colts. Good season by the Colts. It's just the Bills. were the Bills, and they were the team that advanced in the playoffs, basically. Next was a odd game. Also, wanted to know on the Bills and Colts. Closer than I expected. Yeah, definitely closer than I expected. Also, Colts, big blow. Their left tackle, Anthony Castonzo, who was filled in by Jared Valdir because, Colt Castonzo went on season-ending IR. So, but Castonzo has decided to call it quits, and that's a blow to their O-line, their wall. But, injuries happen, and, hope for the best. Next, getting into it was a weird game between the Rams and Seahawks. It was part 3 this year between Rams and Seattle. In Seattle, I picked the Seahawks. I just had a feeling of, considering how their past 2 encounters were this season, close, but coming down to the end, someone was going to make a play, but in here it was close, and then the Rams pulled away ultimately. I mean, John Wolford, he started because Goff still recovering from his broken thumb. He suffered against Seattle Week 16, but Wolford took a hit to the head by safety Jamal Adams as he was diving for a first down marker. And that was the last we saw of him this game. So then Goff came in, and Goff, obviously you can tell he was not 100%. Did the best he could. Did not complete 50% of his throws. But Cam Akers was the story of the game. Cam Akers, he had over 100 yards. And when Goff and when Wolford wasn't there and Goff wasn't 100%, Akers moved the chains. He moved the drives for the Rams, and Goff made a couple plays, couple crucial plays. Also helped having Brockers on the D-line and Cooper Kupp back as well for Rams. Those were 2 additions that they sorely needed. And besides a couple of field goal drives and a broken play to DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey did his part, and the Rams defense just harassed Russell Wilson and left them in a funk. Now, when it comes to the Seahawks and their play calling this game, I felt that they were kind of conservative and they didn't push the pedal to the metal more as they should have. There were a couple of times when Russ ran for first downs. I felt that he should have ran more and they should have been more dialed in. Brian Schottenheimer hit. It might have been his worst play calling game for the Seahawks to date. But yeah, hats off to Rams. They're Defense is number one in the NFL for a reason. Seattle, I mean, Pete Carroll's not getting any younger, and Russell Wilson's, as we know, is still very talented and one of the best QBs in the NFL. But when you look back at when you compare this team to 6 years ago, that team that went to the Super Bowl that lost to the Patriots, this team is wildly different than that team was. Because that team, obviously, we had the Legion of Boom, we had Marshawn Lynch, we had a solid line, and they had plenty of receivers. This team, Russell Wilson's still there, have some quality running backs, and some solid receivers, but the glaring issue continues to be that O-line. That O-line has not been really good for years, and they need to address it. I mean, I still look at when they took Rashad Penny a couple years ago, when there were plenty of O-linemen still in the draft, and for why, I don't know. It has clearly not been a very good move. Now, Rashad Penny, he has made some quality moves when he's healthy, but still, their issue, because they had Chris Carson at the same time, but the issue has continued to be that O-line, and they need to fix it sorely. And, they have Jamal Adams, they had Carlos Dunlap, who they both traded for, but it's ugly. Yeah, can't really say much. The Rams have a chance to upset the Packers in Lambeau. I'll say that. Next was the final game of Saturday for wildcard weekend. Saturday night, Buccaneers, first time in the playoffs since 2007, facing Washington, who won the NFCs thanks to Doug Pearson benching Jalen Hurts, and ultimately got fired for his lasting impression in Philly. So, the story of the day, or the story of the game, although the Bucs, they had their way, but on offense, but Taylor Heinicke, who started because Alex Smith's leg wasn't 100%, he started and took many by surprise. He just came in there for a guy that has only been there a couple weeks. He showed out and kept Washington fighting. He kept them in it. He made some good runs. That one run when it looked like there was nothing there, and he went to the outside and dove for the pylon, scored a touchdown to make it within a 2-point game. It's hard to put in words, but Heinicke showed out and kept them very much in it. He went out with a shoulder injury, but came back in. And the Buccaneers, I mean, they scored 31 points, but they felt like they were in a funk. It felt like the second half starting out. I mean, they started strong. They hit passes to Godwin. Excuse me. Excuse me. They hit passes to Antonio Brown. They were getting their groove, and then all of a sudden it's drop passes by Chris Godwin and Keyshawn Vaughn and Fournette. He was running, and Cameron Brate, he was catching passes, and it took a while, but they came out of the funk, and it's going to be interesting to see how they perform against the Saints. But they won 31-23. Also, in the final score, the Rams Seahawks 30-20. But Buccaneers, we know when they play right, we've seen with that roster what they can do. But when they're in their funk, then it's an issue. So we'll see. Braves and Brees round 3 next Sunday. And then the opening act of Sunday of Wildcard Weekend, we had the Ravens and the Titans. And this, you expected a physical game that it would be a few plays by someone that would turn the tide, and ultimately Lamar Jackson made the plays that Derrick Henry did not do. And their defense disrupted Derrick Henry. He only had 41 yards rushing. It felt like, I don't know. It felt like he might have been finding his groove down the stretch, but it was strange because the Titans went up 10-0, and then the Ravens scored 17 unanswered, and it was just odd that, well, Ryan Tannehill had a pretty good start, and he still kept them in it, but, I mean, that offensive line was just odd to see. You can tell they weren't the same going back to them losing Taylor early in the year. And, they were still kind of good, and Ryan Tannehill, he still completed, still had 165 yards throwing, but ultimately it was Khalif Raymond falling down and Marcus Peters making a pick, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens move on. And the Ravens, they keep going. Titans, they had a good year, 11-5, as well as like the Colts, but they, as bad as their defense has been, they did their work. It just, they were kind of funk. I think they still need a couple playmakers still on offense to try to be more balanced, and that's what we saw. Then what was a weird funk of a game, but still was interesting. The Saints defeat the Bears 21-9. I mean, it was odd because missed opportunities by the Bears and the Saints defense played their butts off. I mean, as we know, the Saints the last 3 years have gone out of the playoffs in heartbreaking fashion, twice to the Vikings and once to the Rams. This case, the Saints went up 7-0 after a good drive by Drew Brees. Alvin Kamara was still getting in his groove, not practicing all week. He still contributed, but ultimately it was the passing game of the Saints and their defense. And it was 7-0, and it was a beautiful trick play by the Bears that had all the makings, and Javon Williams drops a wide open touchdown. Beautiful touchdown pass by Trubisky in the end zone that would have tied the game and might have turned the tides, but the Bears couldn't really grasp the momentum that they had, or they could have had, if they had hit that play. But still, the Saints defense and the passing game kept the Saints in it and ultimately was a deciding factor. Although the last play of the game, Jimmy Graham, probably making the most exciting meaningless catch in a playoff game, or a touchdown catch in a playoff game. I mean, still nonetheless, Saints advance. Their defense played their butts off. The Bears, we know they had the hot start 5-1. They dropped 6 straight. Then they won 3 of their last 4, and made the playoffs. They still had a good season, although, they kind of revived their season after a skid. But no shame in the Bears. They got work to do. The Saints, gave the Bears offense all they could handle. And then what a way to end the wild card weekend. The Browns are not the same Browns. The Browns are, like I have said, these are the new Browns. And Juju Smith-Schuster said the Browns are the Browns. And it was just all Browns this game. They never let up the lead. I mean, the first play of the Steelers, I was making dinner, and I looked back, and all of a sudden, what the crap, was a high snap by Marquise Pouncey over Big Ben's head that was ultimately recovered for a touchdown by the Browns. And just like that, the Browns are ahead 7-0. And they did not let the lead, and it just fell down for the Steelers. I mean, 2 touchdowns by Kareem Hunt, a touchdown by Baker to Jarvis Landry. It was 35-10 at the half. 35-10. And, the Steelers, they scored 2 touchdowns to go up to only fall behind 23-35. But there were some judgments, play calling that did not make much sense. They did not really go aggressive. Big Ben, he threw 4 picks. 2 of them, I'm not quite sure were his fault, but still, they tried their best to keep it close late, but it was too little too late, and the Browns won 48-37. I mean, the Browns, they are, you gotta watch out for them. They are, all they had to go through, no practice without Stefanski on the sideline, without Bill Callahan and their assistant offensive line coach. All they had to go through, and Michael Dunn, who is filling in for Joel Bitonio at left guard, he went out, and Blake Hance came in as the left guard. And on the right side, Jack Conklin went out, and Kendall Lamb, he filled in. Barely heard TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt. I barely heard those guys' names all night, and hats off to the Browns. It'll be very interesting to see how it goes against Kansas City. In Kansas City on Sunday, but should be a good one. Alright. So I was 4-2, not bad, on wildcard weekend with my picks. I was only failed by the Titans and Seahawks. Close games, but here or there, some plays, it's how it is. Now, get to my predictions of the divisional round. 4 really interesting games. So, first off, Rams, who, guided by their defense, number 1 ranked defense, off their win over Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, going to Lambeau Field to play Aaron Rodgers at the MVP frontrunner, in my opinion. In Lambeau Field, man, should be interesting. Also, Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. That will be interesting. Packers, -7 favorites. Or 7-point favorites. John Wolford will be starting for this game. They have some good pieces. They have, obviously, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee. They got a lot of good pieces. Cam Akers at running back. Their O-line was healthy again. Andrew Whitworth returned. And, of course, they got that number one defense. The Packers, their offense has been on fire. Aaron Rodgers throwing to Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan, Valdez Scantling, excuse me. Their defense is not it's not great, but it's good and it's tough. They got pieces. Ultimately, this comes down to John Wolford versus Aaron Rodgers, in which another piece to talk about is Aaron Jones. And I just think, the Rams have a good chance of winning and pulling the upset. But I just see it going. There's too much to handle for the Rams to go toe-to-toe with the Packers, in my opinion. So I'm going with the Packers to win 27-21. So I have the Rams covering, but by a point. So I'm going with the Packers win and to host the NFC Championship. Next up, the second game on Saturday. Ravens going to Buffalo. The Bills getting behind their MVP candidate, Josh Allen, versus Lamar Jackson and the Ravens defense. Now, against Lamar Jackson, the Titans tried to play their athletes, try to play more secondary players on the defense, try to catch Lamar Jackson, catch that speed. It worked for most of the first half, but over time the Ravens just got it. Now, Buffalo, their defense is better than the Tennessee defenses. They're bigger. I had some issues trying to pick this game, but the Bills defense, they're bigger, they're tougher. They're obviously better than Tennessee's defense was. Sure, they only gave up 20 points, but still, when you look at Buffalo's defense, Harrison Phillips in the middle, you got Matt Milano, you got Tre'Davious White, you got Josh Norman, you got Levi Wallace, you got some good players on defense. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. They got enough on defense, and Josh Allen, without Zach Moss, still, Josh Allen, he knows how something Ryan Tannehill hasn't done much of, but Josh Allen knows how to hit those off-script plays and just make those plays out of nowhere. Those jaw-dropping plays. Lamar Jackson can too, but it's hard to pick, but I'm going with the Bills 28-23. And they covered. They're 2.5 point favorites, so I got them covering. So Next up, and another very intriguing game. The Chiefs, 9.5-point favorites, going to Cleveland, hosting Cleveland. The Browns, who had that big win over Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. The Chiefs, their offense has been kind of stuttering as of late. I mean, against the Falcons, they only scored 17 points. It's strange. And the Browns, they got their momentum. I believe Joel Bitonio will be back. Same with Kevin Stefanski. I don't. 9.5 points is a lot to give against the Browns, and yes, you can say the Chiefs, but say this is gonna be a blowout is kind of silly. This will be a high-scoring game. Will be a fun game. I'm calling the upset. Browns win 34-30. I think I'm crazy. Screw it. I'm going with it. I'm going with it. And then the final game of divisional round weekend. Another doozy. Brady vs. Brees round 3 this year. Buccaneers going to New Orleans. Saints 3.5-point favorites. Interesting. Taylor Heineke gave the Buccaneers all they could handle, which is kind of concerning. The Saints defense played their butts off against the Bears, and you can say what you want, that the Bears had their penalties and, the drop touchdown. I mean, bottom line is the Saints defense did more against the Bears offense. I mean, their first two encounters, the Saints, it was close the first go around to start the season, and the Buccaneers made a few mistakes, including a pick six by the Bucs. Their last encounter, 38-3, the Buccaneers only had 4 rushes. They tried, and the Buccaneers can obviously sometimes get lost in the shiny toys they have. What I mean by that is they want to show them off so well, because you got Gronk, you got Godwin, you got Antonio Brown, you got Mike Evans. It's easy to look at those shiny toys and want to be able to throw it all around and get in a shootout. And the Saints are loaded as well on offense and defense. It's hard. I see the winner of this game gonna win the Super Bowl. That's my opinion. I just think the winner of this game is going to win the Super Bowl, whether it's Bucs or the Saints. It's hard to imagine that one of these quarterbacks is going to be taking the early exit in the divisional round, but it's going to happen. I'm trying not to be emotional in this pick because I like both quarterbacks. I'm not going to be emotional. But ultimately, when I look at the offense and the defense of the Saints and look at the defense of the Bucs, their secondary is their Achilles heel and they can be exploited. And ultimately, if it comes down to a shootout, I trust the Saints defense more than I trust the Bucs defense. So I'm picking the Saints. And that's a bit difficult to do. I'm picking the Saints to win 27-23. It sounds strange, but I'm doing it. Yeah, it's Saints cover. So that means if all this happens, when it boils down to it, that means that the Packers would host the Saints in the NFC Championship, and the Bills would host the Browns in the AFC Championship. Sounds strange, but if the predictions hold up, that's how it goes. Lastly, for this episode, we have a UFC fight card happening again Saturday night. Yeah, Max Holloway, the former 145-pound champion, featherweight champion of the UFC, taking on rising star in the top 10, Calvin Kattar, who are both, Calvin Kattar's on a solid win streak. He's coming in hot. He is hungry. Max Holloway, he's a two-time champion. He can absolutely pull it off. But I'm going Calvin Kattar to win that fight. And sounds strange, but changing guard, perhaps. What more can Max accomplish on 145? I don't know. But there's that. There's the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I did. Thank you all. Like I said, if you're new, like and subscribe. Click on that bell also for notifications. Thank you all, and I'll see you back on Thursday with my AEW Dynamite review. Thank you.